Detective John Smith had just arrived in the small town of Pineville, located in the heart of America. He was assigned to investigate a murder case that had rocked the quiet town. The victim was a well-known businessman, Mr. Charles Johnson, who was found dead in his office with a gunshot wound to the head. As Detective Smith began to investigate the case, he soon realized that the case was more complicated than he had initially thought. The victim's office was ransacked, and valuable items such as cash, jewelry, and documents were missing. This led the detective to believe that the motive behind the murder was robbery. Detective Smith interviewed several people who knew Mr. Johnson, including his family members, colleagues, and business partners. However, he found that everyone had an alibi at the time of the murder, and there was no concrete evidence to link anyone to the crime. During his investigation, Detective Smith received an anonymous tip-off that led him to a local pawn shop. The shop owner showed him a few pieces of jewelry that were recently sold to him by a man who matched the description of the suspect. The detective then asked for the shop's CCTV footage, which showed the suspect entering the shop and selling the stolen jewelry. The footage showed that the suspect had a distinct tattoo on his right forearm, which would make it easier for the detective to identify him. The pawn shop owner also provided the detective with the suspect's name and address, which led him to a rundown apartment complex on the outskirts of town. As the detective approached the apartment, he noticed a man matching the suspect's description leaving the building. The detective followed the suspect at a distance and saw him enter a parked car. The detective then called for backup and followed the suspect's car. The suspect drove for a few miles before stopping at a gas station. Detective Smith, who was waiting nearby, saw the suspect get out of the car and enter the convenience store. The detective followed him inside and saw him buying a pack of cigarettes. The detective then approached the suspect and identified himself as a police officer. The suspect panicked and pulled out a gun. The detective quickly disarmed him and arrested him. The suspect was identified as Jack Williams, a small-time criminal with a history of robbery and assault charges. During his interrogation, Jack Williams admitted to robbing Mr. Johnson's office but denied killing him. He claimed that he had an accomplice who had shot Mr. Johnson and that he had no knowledge of his accomplice's whereabouts. Detective Smith was determined to find the accomplice and solve the case. He conducted a thorough investigation and gathered more evidence. He found out that Jack Williams' accomplice was his girlfriend, Mary Brown. Mary Brown was a former employee of Mr. Johnson's company and had access to his office. She had told Jack Williams about the valuable items in Mr. Johnson's office, and they had planned to rob him. However, during the robbery, Mary panicked and shot Mr. Johnson in a fit of rage. Detective Smith arrested Mary Brown and charged her with murder. The case was closed, and justice was served. The small town of Pineville was in shock after the murder case was solved. The townspeople were relieved that the killer was caught and that justice was served. Detective Smith received accolades for his excellent work and was hailed as a hero in the community. The murder case in Pineville was a reminder that crime could happen anywhere, even in a small town in America. Detective Smith's determination and dedication to solving the case were a testament to the bravery and professionalism of law enforcement officers. The case also highlighted the importance of community involvement in solving crimes and bringing criminals to justice.